Welcome to the JJ Virgin Lifestyle Show with celebrity nutrition expert, fitness Hall of Famer, and four-time New York Times bestselling author, JJ Virgin. JJ is a warrior mom whose knowledge and expertise have helped change hundreds of thousands of lives with over 3.5 million podcast downloads and appearances on Dr. Phil, Dr. Oz, The Today Show, Rachel Ray, Larry King Live.
Whoa. This show is about you, not about me. I want to help you find practical, real-world ways to dial in your health and mindset so you can finally lose that weight and feel strong and energized. Stop settling for less than your personal best. It's time to find out how to look and feel better than ever. And I'll be right here with you the whole way. Hey, JJ here. Welcome to today's podcast. This is such an important topic, and we are going to be diving deep today into PCOS and talking about it in a way I actually have never heard talked about before, looking at all the different things that could lead to it and what it really should be called, because it's a lot. There's a lot more going on than what meets the eye. So if you've been struggling at all with fatigue, any issues with your hair, any issues with hormone cycles, weight gain, skin issues, listen up, because you may find that this is something that you need to address. And I've got the perfect guest to address it. It is a friend of 5 years now, Amy Medling. She is the founder of PCOS Diva. She'll explain exactly what a PCOS Diva is today in the call. And she also wrote this book that I am really excited about, Healing PCOS, a 21-day plan for reclaiming your health and life with Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome. She's going to be giving out a guide for everyone listening, and you can grab that at jjvirgin.com/PCOS. And this is a guide to really help you when you're going to the doctor, know what you should be asking about, what you should get ordered for you, and then really to help you know what you need to know to understand where you should go next with this issue. And her story, as you hear it, will help you understand why she is the perfect person to be talking about this. She is a certified health coach, and she has helped tens of thousands, probably more at this point, of women be able to heal their PCOS and regain their fertility, femininity, health, and happiness. All righty. Welcome to the show, Amy Medling. I'm so thrilled to have you with me today.
Oh, thank you for inviting me on. I'm so happy to be here.
This is such an important topic, and you're really one of the leading experts out there speaking about PCOS. And I'm just curious, because I actually do not know this. I only know you as the PCOS Diva, and I have no idea how you got involved with all this.
Oh gosh, well, I'm definitely a woman with PCOS, but I am thriving with PCOS. And I used to be a woman who was frustrated, and I lost all hope because the only advice that my doctor offered me was to lose weight, take a pill, and live with my symptoms. And those are the women that I hear from on a daily basis. So many women are frustrated with the lack of solutions that mainstream doctors have to offer.
I got to tell you, what I'm most amazed about is I've found quite a few women out there who just haven't been diagnosed at all or been misdiagnosed. So let's dive in first, in case anyone listening is not quite sure what PCOS is. Let's first talk about what it is, and then, how would you know if you have it?
Sure. So PCOS, it stands for Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome. It's one of the most common endocrine system disorders found in women. It's also the leading cause of female infertility, and is how, a large majority of women find out they have it when they kind of embark on a fertility journey. When I wrote the book, the figure statistic was like 1 in 10, but now the figure is increasing to almost 1 in 5 women have PCOS or symptoms of PCOS. And
oh my gosh.
I know, it's really become just a worldwide epidemic. The really frightening statistic is that between 50 to 70% of those women do not know they have PCOS. And PCOS causes an array of symptoms, which I'll mention here in a minute, but it also can lead to some major health issues. So between about 50% of women become diabetic before the age 40. They're 3 times more likely to develop endometrial cancer and 5 to 7 times more likely to have cardiovascular disease. So unless you can really get a handle of your lifestyle and start managing your PCOS, which it can absolutely be managed and you can thrive, you're really looking at some serious health conditions down the road.
And it is, I'm going to share some, Amy, that's going to kind of, it won't surprise you, but it's still kind of outrageous. So I was doing the doctor's TV show and they wanted me to come on and work with a gal who needed to lose weight. And she'd miscarried and hadn't been able to lose the weight or get pregnant again. And I'm looking at her and first of all, she's got skin tags. She'd miscarried very quickly. And I'm like, did anyone ever check your insulin and your testosterone levels? I'm like just going, I think I know why this, nothing you're trying is working. And I remember no one had looked at this, despite the fact that she had these clear signs of this. So I'm betting that this is so much bigger than people realize out there. And I'm trying to remember, she was young. She was in her 20s. What age should someone start to look for this? And beyond what you just talked about, what are some of the other things? Like, what should you look for? What ages would this start at? And what should you go ask your doctor to test for?
Yeah, so I know that I started showing signs and symptoms of PCOS about age 14. And I remember my mom taking me to, my doctor, and I was losing hair, and I was kind of starting to grow hair where I didn't want it. So hirsutism is another sign. I had irregular menstrual cycles. And I also was suffering with what I know now is hypoglycemia, like really severe episodes where I would pass out. And the doctors really couldn't figure out what was going on with me. And this happens to a lot of women where they're sort of told by doctors that it's all in their head. And I remember a doctor telling my mother that I probably just needed to go see a psychologist because all of these, because my hair was falling out, that I was probably stressed out, and it was kind of all in my head. I am kind of the thin phenotype of PCOS, which is often missed. I don't have that, although I do still have some insulin resistance issues. I don't have that sort of classic insulin resistance driven PCOS, which is probably sounds like what the woman on the doctors had. So, weight gain around the middle, high levels of insulin, which can cause things like skin tags, darkening of the skin. But women with PCOS can have androgen-driven symptoms. So you definitely want your doctor to test your androgen levels, your testosterone, your DHEA. So acne would be driven by that, often sort of that jawline acne. And then again, that DHT sort of hair loss that's and hair growth. And thyroid disorders. So a large percentage of women with PCOS have hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's. So there's some thought that PCOS might be an autoimmune disorder. And there's women with PCOS are definitely at higher risk of autoimmune disorders as well.
Yeah, I was just wondering why, like with these stats you just gave, what's behind this? Or what do you suspect is behind all of this?
So I think, like a lot of chronic illnesses, it's inflammation is really a root cause, insulin resistance, certainly, hormonal imbalance. I know for me, with my type of PCOS, it seems that it's kind of adrenal driven. So it's kind of like this. So stress really wreaks havoc on my system. I had had a very stressful summer. So, I know I didn't do the best job managing my stress. And so now I'm kind of dealing with some hair loss issues, and my PCOS is sort of symptoms are kind of coming back. So that's an important point to make about PCOS is there's really no cure for PCOS. So if somebody's selling you a cure, you really want to look at that with some skepticism.
Well, it also sounds like it's not just one thing. Like you talked about, more of some of the androgen hormones, or it could be insulin, or it could be stress. And, I've always heard of it as, it's insulin resistance, but it seems like there's a lot of different ways to get to this problem.
Yeah. And I think, in the future, I think a lot of women are dumped into this PCOS bucket. Because it's a syndrome, it really presents itself different in every woman. And there's this thought that there's these different phenotypes of PCOS. So maybe, and there's also this idea that there's even a post-pill form of PCOS. So a lot of women that come off the pill, they start showing signs and symptoms of PCOS, but it might not really be a kind of true PCOS. There's definitely some genetic component for some women. I know for myself, my mother was diagnosed with what they called Stein-Leventhal disorder back in the 60s and 70s. And she actually had a wedge resection surgery, which is crazy to me back in 1969 that a doctor really identified PCOS is sort of the root cause of her infertility, and she became pregnant with me and my sister. And she ended up having a hysterectomy because the doctors told her it would cure her of her PCOS, which is a real misnomer. Taking out your ovaries does not cure PCOS because it really is a metabolic endocrine disorder. But you're right. There's lots of different sort of types of PCOS, and I think that kind of makes it difficult to diagnose. But to get a diagnosis, in right now in this day and age, it's you're diagnosed according to the Rotterdam criteria. So if you're listening and some of these symptoms you can kind of check off, and you've never been told that you have PCOS. So, you'd want to go to your doctor and ask them to diagnose you based on the Rotterdam criteria. So it's essentially 2 out of the 3 of the following. So number 1 would be irregular ovulation or absent ovulation. Number 2 would be hyperandrogenism, so elevated levels of androgenic hormones, such as testosterone. And then number 3 is polycystic ovaries. So if you present 2 out of the 3, then you'd be diagnosed with PCOS. But the kind of tricky thing is that 70% of women with polycystic PCOS have the polycystic ovaries, but 30% do not. And approximately 20% of women who do not have PCOS have cysts on their ovaries. So that, again, it's somewhat of a misnomer. And I think it makes it tricky for women to get a diagnosis.
Probably at some point down the road, it won't be called this anymore.
Yeah, and that's interesting because there is an effort underway to change the name. There's a doctor in Chicago, Dr. Andrea Denaith, and she's really championing to change the name to MRS, Metabolic Reproductive Syndrome. So we'll see what happens there. But for the immediate future, it's still PCOS. And the good thing is that we're finally, as a community starting to really raise some awareness. And
you've been doing a great job at that, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you. And there's a nonprofit organization called PCOS Challenge that's really leading the way. We just had our first PCOS Advocacy Day on Capitol Hill because PCOS, it's a $4.3 billion economic burden every year.
Wow.
And only 0.1% of the National Institute of Health budget goes to PCOS, which is crazy to me.
Well, so let's look at it though, because now you've talked about it being a variety of different things. I love that idea of metabolic reproductive syndrome, because that's what feels like much more of just this whole metabolic issue coming from a variety of different factors. So someone gets diagnosed, where do they start? Because you talk about this big budget, but I have a feeling that if they follow your plan, and just heads up if you're listening here, obviously you're here, you're listening. Amy wrote a book, Healing PCOS, a 21-day plan for reclaiming your health and life with polycystic ovary syndrome. But she will also be gifting you her PCOS 101 guide to health and hope. And you'll be able to grab that at jjvirgin.com/PCOS. Someone getting diagnosed, because I know you have a whole recovery program now to help heal from this. Where would they start?
Yeah, and I want you to know that if you go to your doctor and you've been diagnosed, they're probably going to tell you just what I said in the beginning of your show is, lose weight, take a pill, which is usually the birth control pill, or the pharmaceutical drug metformin.
Please don't take the birth control pill.
I know. It's one of the worst things that you could do for your PCOS, for sure. It's kind of a Band-Aid. It might sort of alleviate some symptoms in the short term, but boy, if you want to get pregnant and then come off of that, your symptoms are going to come back worse than they were before. So I believe that lifestyle modification should be first line therapy. And there's so much that you can do to manage your PCOS that's so within your power, and you don't have to take I would say most cases, pharmaceuticals for PCOS.
That's fantastic. So where would one start?
The name of my company is PCOS Diva, and a big part of being a PCOS Diva is really shifting your mindset from being a victim, which is, I spent many years kind of woe is me, like why does this have to happen to me, and just really taking whatever doctors told me at face value. I took the pill, I took metformin, I was on spironolactone, I was on Actos, which we now know causes bladder cancer. I just really took whatever they told me and really felt worse than before. So I found that changing my mindset to a place of kind of personal empowerment, I guess, was really important, and realizing that I could take control instead of playing sort of this whole role of this helpless victim.
Good. There aren't victims on this podcast. We are all personal health detectives. So you're fitting right in here with this idea that, especially when you talk about PCOS as so many different things that could be creating this problem, it really will be you becoming your own personal health detective, becoming that PCOS diva and going, all right, what are the issues and what do I need to do? And, big takeaway here is all those things that you tried that you were getting prescribed by the doctors made you feel worse, not better. And it wasn't until you took it into your own hands and then figured out how to heal it that you made the shifts.
Yeah. And I think so many people are looking for the magic pill. And my message is, there is no magic pill. Really, you are the magic pill. And you do that I love that idea of being a health detective. And I with my clients, I really talk about, PCOS is the biggest science experiment. You've got to experiment with food and supplements and lifestyle changes to really figure out what works for you. But part of that too is realizing that your body isn't betraying you. It's really calling for your help. And for me, PCOS was like a wake-up call that my life wasn't in balance, and that I had to really work on mind, body, and spirit in order to begin healing. So really learning how to stop fighting with your body and instead working in partnership with it to recognize its like subtle signals and then respond in a more loving and nurturing way.
And does your book guide you through? Because I know you have a whole process to help people go through, figure out what works for them, and heal this. And that's what I'm assuming the 21-day plan is going to walk them through.
Yeah. So, we start with mindset and really learning to shift that mindset, and then eating like a diva. And so, I think your virgin diet is so great because inflammation is a root cause of PCOS, and so many women are eating foods that are causing inflammation. So figuring out, what foods are inflammatory for you. And it's really different for everyone. I don't think that there's a one size fits all approach to diet
Nope.
for PCOS.
Or for anything for that matter. Here's my belief now is that every diet, I'm going to call them a guru out there, figured out what worked really well for them. And then they go out and that's the one everyone should be. And I'm like, yeah, no, not really. Figure out, I think if you take someone through a process so they can identify which foods work for them and which foods don't. And right, inflammation is kind of the core of everything. So once you identify that, it can make such a massive shift.
Yeah. I mean, I do have one caveat. I have not met a vegan PCOS diva. I mean, I really think that most women with PCOS need to have some clean animal protein to thrive. But they also need lots and lots of plant-based food. And because women with PCOS tend to be, I call it overfed and undernourished, and they're really depleted in nutrients and vitamins and minerals. And so, you need to be sure that you're getting a lot in your diet. But then most women with PCOS need to supplement. They're really low in vitamin D and B12 and magnesium. And, they need to supplement with supplements to kind of help them feel better. And then there's, once you get your eating dialed in, I call it moving like a diva. So, so many women with PCOS, are in this lack deprivation place and mindset. And so I want them, rather than punishing their body or trying to exercise out the calories that they ate, earlier in the day, that you connect with movement in a more joyful way. And I kind of say it doesn't really matter how you move as long as it's something that's sustainable and that you enjoy doing. But to take that a little bit further is I find that a lot of women with PCOS, and I think maybe it's because of the high androgens, we're type A and we're overachievers, and we like to run marathons and really kill ourselves at CrossFit. And that is really hard on our adrenals. We're already kind of compromised.
We're not meant to move like that. I just don't buy that we're supposed to be doing that.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that.
Not at all. Yeah. I just was having some friends over and having a discussion about women in CrossFit and women. I was like, it's just too much. We're not supposed to do this. I work out 75% less than I used to in my 20s. And I'm fitter.
Yeah, and you probably feel better too, right? You're not as exhausted.
Oh, yeah. And stressed. And coming from a place like we talked about of self-loathing where you were trying to burn the calories off you just ate, which by the way is not the way our body works. So that's a silly thing,
Right. So, I do think that high intensity interval training, the name, I guess, from what we're talking about sounds a little, we're not talking about high intensity for a minute. I mean, for an hour, it's these little minute intervals that is really helpful for insulin resistance. And then building muscle through strength training. And then I do think that women with PCOS need some type of mind-body connection to exercise, whether that's yoga. For me, I love Pure Barre. That really helps me on a lot of different levels, mind-body, strength training. There's high intensity in there. And it just makes me feel good. And, I can kind of keep my health, moving forward. So exercise and finding a joyful connection to movement is really important. But my 21-day plan is really about creating healthy habits. And, it starts by just not hitting the snooze button in the morning and getting yourself out of bed and starting with some type of morning routine for you. I'm a busy mom with 3 kids, and I'll tell you, my day and the health choices that I make for myself start in the morning. If I, let my kids drag me out of bed in the morning, and I don't have that time for myself to sort of set the stage for self, care, then the rest of my day goes downhill.
The whole day goes. It's like eating the wrong breakfast. It's that same thing of not having that time for yourself.
Yeah,
So
like
critical.
creating these healthy little habits in sort of sections during your day, and that's what I've done with the 21-day plan. The other place where I find that women really get derailed, and I don't know if you find this, JJ, but is not taking the time to plan out your week and plan out your meals and snacks and make sure you get yourself to the grocery store and that you have those things on hand to prepare healthy food from scratch.
Well, and plus we've got Thrive Market, we've got Amazon Fresh. I mean, it is Instacart. It's like now it's so easy to do these things. And I literally, I mean, you know, I run 2 companies. I have kids. I've got one son recovering from a brain injury, and I make dinner. It's possible. It's whatever you decide.
Right. And it really becomes, you have to shift the thinking to it. It's a part of your self-care.
Yeah, I actually really, it's kind of like a part of a transition time at night. So big takeaways I'm hearing here is nothing here is overwhelming to do. These are all simple things that you can start putting into your day. Your process will help people put these into place and start to transform, and that your body, when you've got PCOS, is really just trying to send out signals to you to say, hey, you know, you need to pay attention and start to make some shifts. And so I think we need to rethink how we look at symptoms, because a lot of these things, like I can tell if I'm getting overstressed, I can see it in my gut, I can see it on my skin. We can tell these things. And this is just another wake-up call to listen. I want to remind everybody about your guide. Tell everyone what the PCOS 101 Guide to Health and Hope, what they'll find in there.
Yeah, so I wanted to develop something that, you know, for a woman that's just diagnosed, it's kind of a roadmap as to, you know, how to begin, you know, the healing process. So, you know, we talk about the signs and symptoms of PCOS and how to work with a medical team. You know, you don't just want your primary care physician, but there's so many people out there that can help you. There's integrative physicians and endocrinologists and acupuncturists, health coaches like myself. So really a way to assemble the team and how to be prepared when you go to talk to your doctor. You know, I kind of call it being a diva at the doctor. You want to have a list of labs that you want them to run, because a lot of times, especially like with thyroid, and I bet you've talked about this a lot on your show, is most doctors just want to run TSH, but you know, you need to, you know, advocate to, you know, for additional testing.
Yes, and if your doctor won't do that, then you either need to do consumer-directed testing. I know our buddies, Dr. Allen and Amy Beth Hopkins, are helping us with that, or find a functional medicine doctor, and that is super critical. Like, you know, if you're getting pushback, then you've just got the wrong practitioner. Find a different one.
Yeah, and in my experience, it's the functional integrative doctors or naturopaths who are really dialed in on how to treat PCOS. And, you know, they're the ones that, you know, they're not going to be prescribing the pill. They're going to really get to the root of your hormonal imbalance.
I don't think I've ever met a functional medicine doctor, and certainly not a naturopathic doctor, who prescribes the birth control pill.
So, and they're not going to shame you either. Right. They're not going to say, well, you just need to go lose some weight, or you're being too lazy, you need to exercise more. There's a lot of shaming and gaslighting going on in mainstream medical with women with PCOS. And it's really, actually, there was an article that just came out this week in The Atlantic about this very topic.
Wow, so, that's crazy.
Yeah.
All right, you can grab this guide again at jjvirgin.com/PCOS. And I just so appreciate everything that you are doing out there for this topic. It's such a major, major topic. I didn't even realize how big, I knew it was major, but I didn't realize the level until you started doing the stats. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I'm so honored to have you on the show, and so thrilled that you've got your book out there, because we have needed this book. So again, reminding everyone, Healing PCOS, a 21-day plan for reclaiming your health and life with Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome by Amy Medling. And Amy, thank you again so much for being on the show with me today.
Oh, thank you, JJ. And I just want to leave with the point that there's so much hope for women with PCOS. And, you know, most women can get and do get pregnant, and you can absolutely thrive with PCOS with the right lifestyle change.
That's a perfect ending. Now, I want to remind everyone, this is not the end. After the break, I'll be answering a listener's questions, so stay with me.
Want a better quality of sleep while also calming your brain? Now there's a great tasting way to do it. JJ Virgin's lemon-flavored sleep candy contains amino acids and nutrients to help you naturally fall asleep with ease. This gluten-free, non-GMO, dairy-free sleep assistant also helps you stay asleep so you feel rejuvenated and more relaxed. So, if you want to get a better night's sleep, visit www.jjvirgin.com/products and try JJ's Sleep Candy.
Welcome back. This is the time where I answer a listener's question. And gosh, I so appreciate these questions. I love them. I especially love it when you guys jump on Facebook or Instagram when I'm doing my lives and throw questions up. Super fun. And what I do is I watch all of our questions everywhere, and I'm always grabbing the ones that just fit a segment so well. This one comes from Connie. And Connie wrote in and said, JJ, I've been diagnosed with adrenal fatigue and told that I have to be super careful with exercise. Where do I start? This is such a good one because we've talked today about, and I loved, by the way, I just loved the way Amy talked about PCOS as much more of a metabolic disorder, reproductive metabolic syndrome or metabolic reproductive syndrome. That is such a really smart way to think about it. Now, back when I was in grad school for exercise physiology, they weren't even talking about hormones and exercise. And it's really important. Just like we look at using food to balance your hormones, exercise is the same. And you heard me kind of bash on the show doing like high intensity exercise. Now, I love high intensity interval training, but extended periods of it can be really, really bad for you for a variety of reasons. But that doesn't mean I don't love high intensity interval training. I love it done correctly. So the big thing I want to get across first is that exercise can be therapeutic or destructive. And it really depends on the dose. So it really depends on the type of exercise you're doing it, how long you're doing it for, and what kind of recovery you're giving yourself when you're doing it. The things that I like to do first, if you're not doing anything at all, I think the best place to start is just to really make sure you move more. This is where having a dog is awesome because nothing makes you go out for a walk like a little dog looking at you with its little eyes. You're like guilted out. So move more. And we should just be moving more throughout the day. And that's really a great gentle place to start, especially if you're dealing with adrenal exhaustion. But then what's really interesting here is you can use burst training or high intensity interval training, both the same thing, to help to retrain your sympathetic nervous system to be able to handle stress and recover faster. And that's a big part of being fit is how fast you recover. And so the next thing that I have people doing who are healing their adrenals is to start doing a small amount of high intensity interval training. I was hanging out with someone today who went and did a 40-minute high intensity interval training workout a couple times a week. I go, that's just too much high intensity interval training. In my book, you do 4 to 8 total minutes of bursting, but you do that in this way. You burst for 30 to 60 seconds. That could be a sprint. It could be running upstairs. It could be like crazy dancing. It could be cycling. But then you recover actively for twice as long. So maybe you go up the stairs for a minute, you come back down them for 2 minutes, up a minute, down for 2, or up 30 seconds, down a minute. And that active recovery is important for buffering back down that lactic acid, which you can actually use in an alternative fuel source. So when you're healing your adrenals, start moving more and then add in burst training. Just start with 4 minutes total 3 times a week. So it would look like 3 minutes, 30 seconds of really whatever it is that gets you tired. So it could be a sprint. It could be a fast walk. It could be a jog. It could be walking upstairs and then walk it off and do it again. Accumulate 4 minutes of bursting. Do this every other day or 2. Do it 3 times a week. Go there. Then you can start adding in some resistance training, which can help your body handle blood sugar better too, which is super important. You want to have good blood sugar balance. Resistance training is key because it improves insulin sensitivity right at the muscle. But that's where I would tell you to start. And I just got to shout out to you, Connie, that you asked the great question, how can I do this? And today, Amy talked about not being a victim. And that's what I love about our community is we are detectives, right? We're going to figure out how we can do something and how it impacts our body. And important takeaway here, if you're feeling crappy or doing something, stop it. It's probably not what you should be doing. Unless it's the first couple of days of pulling, starting to lower the sugar out or taking the gluten out and you're craving things. Well, guess what? You'll get through that and you'll feel a lot better. All right. So again, if you want to leave a question for me, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Pinterest, I'm all over the place. Look for JJ Virgin Official on Facebook, jj.virgin on Instagram, JJ Virgin, my YouTube channel, jump on my blog. So just leave comments. We're always sniffing around, looking for them and getting them answered. And I love, love, love it when you join me on my lives. Okay. Now, dun, 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 I love this. Makes me so happy is reading reviews. Every week I read a review and showcase it. And we're actually going to start doing these a couple times a week. So stay tuned. More is coming. This one is from Podcasts Are the New Orange. It gets really cute. 5-star review in Apple. Apple from UK. And it says, great show. One of my favorite trusted shows full of sane and useful health advice. My only criticism is the end music is too upbeat. I like to play podcasts in bed, but it wakes me up. I guess that's deliberate to make us sleep up and do lots of healthy stuff. Yes, that's your sign to go up there and burst train. Woo! All right. I loved that. That was very, very fun. And by the way, whatever you have to say, we love to hear it because we pay attention. Apparently my sound was wonky on one of these. And so if you hear something, say something. We are always striving to serve, and especially if you've got topics you'd love us to cover. I'd love to know that too. And if you haven't left a review yet, pretty please, will you leave a review? I super appreciate it. It really helps people kind of go, should I listen to this? So I appreciate that while you're there. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. And if you feel compelled, share it with your friends. All right. I will see you next week. Thank you. Bye.
That's all for this episode of the JJ Virgin Lifestyle Show, which marks another step towards a healthier body and mind. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the show, and we'll talk to you next week.